let me paint you a picture. And I want you to be honest with yourself about whether this sounds familiar. You meet someone and there's something about her that pulls you in immediately. Maybe it's the way she carries herself. Maybe it's the fact that she seems just slightly out of reach, like she's present but not fully there, warm one day and distant the next, interested enough to keep you in but never quite close enough to make you feel certain. And instead of that uncertainty pushing you away, it pulls you deeper. You find yourself thinking about her more than you think about anything else, trying harder, showing up more, being more patient, more understanding, more willing to work with whatever version of her shows up that day. And people around you say things like, she's not that into you, or you deserve better, and you nod and say, yeah, you're right. And then you go home and text her anyway. Sound familiar? If it does, I don't want you to feel embarrassed about that, because this isn't about being weak or being stupid. This is about a pattern, a deep, wired, almost an invisible pattern that a lot of guys carry around without ever realizing it's there. And until you see it clearly, until you actually name it and understand where it came from, you will keep replaying this same situation with different faces, different girl, same story, same ending. So let's actually talk about it. There's a reason certain women feel magnetic to you in a way that stable, available, genuinely interested women often don't. And the reason isn't about those women being more attractive or more special or better matches for you. The reason is about familiarity, about what your nervous system learned to recognize as love a long time before you were old enough to question it. Most guys who consistently end up chasing emotionally unavailable women grew up around some version of love that was inconsistent. Maybe it was a parent who was warm sometimes and cold others, and you never quite knew which version you were going to get. Maybe it was approval that you had to earn rather than approval that was just given. Maybe it was love that felt conditional, like it came with fine print, like you had to perform well enough or be good enough or quiet enough or impressive enough to keep receiving it. And your nervous system learned something from that. It learned that love feels like uncertainty, that caring about someone feels like not knowing where you stand, that the feeling of trying to win someone over, that anxious, effortful, am I enough energy, that's what connection is supposed to feel like. And so when you meet a woman who's stable and warm and clear about liking you, something feels off. Not bad exactly, just flat. Like the signal isn't strong enough because your nervous system is tuned to a frequency that requires a little chaos to feel like something real is happening. And when you meet a woman who's inconsistent, who runs hot and cold, who makes you work for every moment of her warmth, your nervous system lights up. This feels familiar. This feels like something. This must mean it's real. But here's what's actually happening. You're not falling for her. You're falling for the chase. You're falling for the activation, for the hit of dopamine when she finally texts back after 2 days of silence, for the relief when she's warm again after being cold. Your brain is treating her emotional unavailability like a slot machine, and you keep pulling the lever because every occasional reward keeps you hooked better than a consistent one ever could. And this isn't love, this is a loop, and loops don't go anywhere, they just keep going. Now, I want to talk about the woman on the other side of this because it matters. The emotionally unavailable woman is not the villain of this story. She's not deliberately hurting you. She's often carrying her own version of the same wound, her own reasons for keeping people at a certain distance, her own story about what intimacy means and why it's safer not to fully let someone in. She's not cold because she's broken. She's cold because somewhere along the way, warmth felt dangerous to her too. But here's the hard truth. You cannot love someone into availability. You cannot be patient enough or understanding enough or present enough to open a door that someone has decided to keep closed. That's not your job. And every month you spend trying to do it is a month you're not building something with someone who's actually ready to build. The most painful part of this pattern isn't the rejection, it's the time, the quiet erosion of months or sometimes years spent in a holding pattern, waiting for someone to finally decide you're worth fully showing up for. And while you're waiting, your confidence quietly shrinks because you're measuring your worth against her availability, and her availability has nothing to do with your worth. But it stops feeling that way after a while. So what do you actually do with this? How do you break a pattern that's been running since before you were conscious enough to question it? The first thing, and I know this sounds almost too simple, is you have to learn to recognize the feeling, that specific, activated, chest tight, she might disappear, and I need to keep her feeling, not as a sign that something meaningful is happening, but as a signal, a flag, your nervous system saying, this is the familiar thing, this is the pattern trying to repeat. Because awareness is everything. You can't choose differently until you can see clearly what you're choosing and why. The second thing is harder. You have to practice being present in connections that feel calm, because calm is going to feel wrong at first. It's going to feel like something's missing, like the intensity isn't there, like maybe you're just not that into her. And before you walk away from someone stable and genuine because it doesn't feel electric enough, I need you to sit with this question. Is it actually not exciting, or is it just not chaotic? Because those are two completely different things. Real intimacy, the kind that actually lasts, doesn't feel like a roller coaster. It feels like a good room, warm, comfortable, solid. You can breathe in it. You can be quiet in it. You can be having a completely ordinary Tuesday in it, and it still feels like somewhere you want to be. That feeling is not boring. That feeling is home. And if you've spent your whole life in houses that were always slightly on fire, a house that's just warm and steady is going to feel strange. But strange isn't wrong. Strange is just unfamiliar, and unfamiliar things become familiar the more time you spend inside them. The third thing is the one that takes the longest but matters the most. You have to build a life where your sense of okayness is not dependent on how she's treating you today, where your mood in the morning is yours, where your self-worth has roots that go so deep she can't shake it just by being distant, where you are so anchored in who you are and what you're building and what you value that her emotional temperature is just information rather than instruction. That kind of stability doesn't come from reading the right things or thinking the right thoughts. It comes from living, from making commitments to yourself and keeping them, from training your body and sharpening your mind and building genuine friendships and doing work that means something to you, from becoming slowly and quietly a man whose foundation is not built on someone else's approval. When you are that man, the dynamic changes entirely. You stop attracting unavailability because you stop needing the chase to feel alive. You stop putting women on pedestals because you're standing on solid enough ground yourself that you don't need to look up to anyone. You start recognizing early what a situation actually is instead of what you wish it would become. And you start making choices based on reality instead of potential, because potential is a beautiful, dangerous thing. You can spend years loving a person's potential, the version of them that shows up sometimes and makes you think, yes, this is it. This is who they could always be. But you can't build a life with someone's potential. You can only build it with who they actually are right now, consistently, when nothing is on the line. Stop loving potential. Start seeing clearly and start asking yourself after every interaction, not just do I like her, but how do I feel when I'm around her? Not the high of when she's finally warm, the average, the Tuesday, the regular day, because that's the real relationship, not the highlights, the average. If the average feels like anxiety, that's your answer. If the average feels like ease, that's your answer too. You already know more than you think you do. You just have to trust what you know instead of overriding it, because the chase feels like something worth staying for. It's not. You are. And when you finally step into a connection that reflects that back to you, when you meet someone whose consistency matches your own, whose warmth doesn't come with an expiration date, whose interest doesn't feel like something you have to earn back every few days, you're going to understand everything I just said on a level that no video could ever fully teach you. That's the one worth waiting for. Go be the man that's worth waiting for too.